I was 2 hours away from civilization. I was held captive by someone whom I was too quick to trust. Here's my story as it was. I was an only child. My parents tried their hardest to prepare me the best way they could for all the illusions the world brings. They tried to teach me the basics, how to take care of myself, but I rebelled against all the guidance they tried to give me. "Spot red flags," my father would add, the phrase he repeated like a family motto, especially with men. "Get to know people before you decide they're safe. Charming and safe are not the same thing." Back then, I translated concern as criticism. The older I got, the more their advice annoyed me. I couldn't wait till my 18th birthday, because turning 18 meant access to 10% of my trust fund, $200,000. That felt like freedom. With that kind of money, I told myself, warnings were just noise. A week after my 18th birthday, I met Clay. He was 4 years older. I liked his bearded face and his rugged hillbilly appearance. He told me that he lived a solitary life far from civilization, in a cabin way up in the hills, surrounded by perimeter fencing to keep the wild animals out. An hour and 20 minutes drive off the highway, where he could literally do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. I found that appealing. He told me that I was welcome to come visit if I liked. We spent about 3 or 4 hours just talking. He showered me with compliments about some things I doubted about myself. I felt a confidence I'd never felt before. I felt like I'd known him forever. In protest against my parents, I naively ran off with him a few days later. I left a note that said, "Don't worry. I'll message you when I get a chance. I brought my new bank card linked to my trust fund." He picked me up in an old Land Rover Defender. We drove through the bushes, way up in the hills, until the bars on my phone disappeared. I know this might sound stupid. After I was already inside his van, halfway in the woods with no phone signal, I decided to ask him his name. He replied, "Clay." When we got to his cabin, he told me not to ever wander beyond the fence because the bears, wolves, and mountain lions were always on the prowl looking for their next meal. After 2 weeks of mosquito bites and the frightening sound of wolves howling, I asked him to take me back to the city. Suddenly, his demeanor changed. He replied, "This is your new home now." I thought he was joking. At the time, he had the keys for the Land Rover on a keychain. I reached for the keys, but he gripped my wrist aggressively. The stern look in his eyes was enough to send chills down my spine. He then went through my bag, took my ATM card and my phone, and demanded that I give him the password for my phone and the PIN to my bank card. He didn't have to ask me twice. I gave it to him like my life depended on it. That day, I cried so much. I wished I had listened to my parents' advice, but I had a plan. I decided to play the game and wait for the right moment. I tried to act like all was well. He drove into town once a week for supplies. I think it was the 4th week in captivity when, one evening, he mentioned to me that he was planning to go into town the next day for supplies. I asked to go with him to get some personal stuff. Out of nowhere, he grabbed me by my hair and shouted, "Do you think I'm stupid?" I had to recalculate my plan. About 6 weeks in, I started to feel weird. I missed my monthly cycle. I was pregnant. One day, while he was out hunting wild rabbits, I searched every possible place for the Land Rover keys, but I didn't find them. I found my phone, my ATM card, and a lot of cash, receipts that showed the balance on my card. My heart sank when I found out that he'd been texting my mother, pretending to be me. Apparently, I'd checked into a secret religious retreat to seek a deeper connection with the divine, which meant they thought I was safe. I thought about cutting a hole in the fence and taking my chances with the wild animals beyond it, but I was too scared. If it took us almost 2 hours to drive there, I could imagine it taking 3 times as long to get back. The wolves would rip me apart. I felt like all hope was lost until an idea came to mind. I used the phone and took a picture of the cabin, a picture of the Land Rover and its registration plate, and I also took a picture of a photo he had of himself in the cabin. I wrote an SOS message. It read, "Please help." This person is holding me captive against my will in a cabin an hour and a half's drive into the woods. He's been using my ATM card once a week to shop for supplies. Please don't try to reply to this message for my safety. I pressed send, but there wasn't any signal. So I had to switch off the phone and put back everything as I saw it. Now, all I had to do was wait for him to go into town. Once the phone started to get signal, all those messages would be sent. I was so scared and hopeful at the same time. If he discovered my plan, there was no telling what he would do. At this point, I was about 3 months pregnant. When he returned from hunting that day, he didn't suspect anything. Later that week, he left for town. Shortly after he left, maybe about 30 minutes later, I saw the Land Rover approaching at full speed towards the gate. He was screaming some colorful words and calling me all sorts of names. I figured he must have discovered my unsent messages. My first reaction was to run inside and lock the door behind me, but that didn't stop him. He smashed the window and climbed in. That's how angry he was. I was so terrified. I ran into the room and latched the door. I then opened the window and climbed through it. I could hear him inside, banging on the door. I ran to the front of the cabin. To my surprise, the gate was open, and the Land Rover was just there with the keys inside and the engine still running. I quickly hopped inside, put it in reverse, and frantically tried to select first gear to move forward. But I was too nervous. Out of nowhere, he appeared and dragged me through the window of the Land Rover by my hair. He then drove the Land Rover inside, behind the fence, and shut the gate, leaving me outside. Then he shouted, "You want to leave? Go! Leave! Go on!" For a good 20 minutes, I begged him to let me back in. I apologized repeatedly for trying to run away and for attempting to send the messages. He wasn't saying anything. He didn't even look at me. I continued to beg him to let me back inside, especially after hearing the wolves howling in the distance. Instead of opening the gate, he went into the cabin for a piece of deer meat and his hunting rifle. He hung the meat on the fence. In less than 10 minutes, I saw a massive bear appear from the bushes. I was screaming my head off. I had to climb on the fence. I couldn't get over. There were rolls of razor-sharp barbed wire at the top. Within no time, a pack of wolves arrived, growling at the bear aggressively. They eventually ganged up on the bear and drove it off into the bushes. I was convinced that they were fighting for the right to eat me. All this time, I could feel the fence cutting into my hands. It was becoming more difficult to hold on. I was clinging on for life, especially being pregnant. I knew if I fell, I'd be eaten alive, and my parents would have no idea what had happened to me. I had never felt that scared in my life before. Then, a loud explosion. The wolves ran away. The loud noise frightened me. I fell off the fence on my back from about 4 meters high. It was Clay. He had discharged the rifle to scare off the wolves. I was unaware that I was bleeding. The impact of the fall caused me to have a miscarriage. For days, I was in excruciating pain and had a high fever. My body pushed out clots of blood. I must have dozed off or something. All I knew was that I woke up with a drip in my arm. I was feeling much better. The way I was feeling, I knew it was just the grace and mercy of God that kept me alive. He told me that I'd been sleeping for 2 days. I was just happy to be alive. And that's how I lost the first child in captivity. To cut a long story short, he continued to use my ATM card. He kept in contact with my mother, pretending to be me. He showed me her messages. All that time, she was under the impression that I was still in a secret religious retreat. Reading my mother's messages brought tears to my eyes. I regretted not being more receptive to my parents' guidance. I was now 14 months in captivity and pregnant again. I was 8 months pregnant. During this time, he forced himself on me on multiple occasions. One day, he went into town for supplies. I heard gunshots, unusually close. I heard voices. I thought to myself, "Thank you, God. I prayed daily for you to send someone. This must be it." I quickly opened the gate and ran towards where I heard the sounds. I saw two guys in high-vis vests taking selfies with the carcass of a deer, celebrating their hunt. I pretended to be in labor. I told them that my boyfriend was away and I urgently needed to get to the hospital. They wasted no time. They helped me into the front of their pickup truck. I was so scared. Halfway down the hill, my water broke. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was actually in labor for real. I was about to give birth at any time. The drive through the forest down the hill took forever. When I got to the hospital, they rushed me straight to the delivery room. To my surprise, I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. I explained to the staff what had happened. I asked for a call and called my mother. I never forgot her number. I had to memorize it in primary school. I broke down in tears just hearing my mother's voice. They wasted no time coming to the hospital. When they got there, we embraced and cried some more. The next day, the two guys who drove me to the hospital, my heroes I call them, were God sent. They escorted the police to the location where they found me. Clay was nowhere to be seen. 7 years on, and I still haven't seen or heard from him. The twins may never meet their father. They keep asking who he is. Someday I will explain. As for me, I live in constant fear of him finding us. I bought a firearm and installed security cameras around our home. That's my story. My message for you. I am lucky to be alive to tell my story. I thank God every day. Listen to your parents. Don't be annoyed when they try to point you in the right direction. They only want the best for you and to keep you safe. It's their job to do those things. Don't make it hard for them.